If you want to start making money from your art online, even if you don't have a big following, I want to share with you some of the things that I have done to earn money online from my art and just kind of share some advice or tips for getting started. If you're new here, hi, I'm Brandy. I'm a digital artist. Currently, I make about $500 a month from my art online through YouTube, Patreon, commissions, brand partnerships, all that fun stuff. So if you are feeling stuck or just not really sure where to get started, I just kind of want to share some things that have worked for me. So hopefully they can also help you. And I really want to emphasize here, you do not have to have a huge following to get your first few sales online. I probably had less than 1,000 followers on Instagram whenever I was running my Etsy shop, and I would still get probably 2 or 3 sales a month. And I know that's not like life-changing income or anything, but that was still extra money every month. And it also kind of gives you experience. So while you're still working on growing your following and your audience, you can start to feel more confident about what you're doing. So the first method that I want to talk about is starting an art shop. There are kind of 2 ways to go about this. I'm going to start with the one that I personally had more success with. This is getting your own products yourself, packaging it yourself, and shipping it out yourself. I personally ran my shop through Etsy. I do know a lot of artists also run their art shop through their own website. If you're just starting out or you don't have a large following, I recommend just going through a platform like Etsy or somewhere else. Just because if you try to run your art shop through your own website, one, this is a little bit more expensive because you're having to, set up and build your own website. And 2, the cool thing about Etsy is it's basically a search engine. So you don't really need a large following to make sales because it's almost like you're tapping into Etsy's already built customer base. Let's say, for example, you make flower illustrations. And if somebody goes on Etsy, they can just type in flower illustrations and your listing can pop up. This is one where if you do go this route, you really need to do some research into SEO or search engine optimization. All that is basically a fancy phrase for making your listing super appealing to Etsy's algorithm so that it appears at the top of search results. And the reason why you want to do that is because whenever somebody types in flower illustration, you want your listing to be in the first couple of options that pop up for that person. If your listing is not optimized, it could end up on page 10, and most people are not going to go scroll through that far, right? So that's why it's really important to research and figure out for figure out Etsy SEO and targeting specific keywords so that you rank highly in search and you can make more sales that way. You don't even have to have an Instagram or TikTok to do that. Social media is good for attracting your current followers to your shop, but you can actually run a shop without social media. It's just really important to make sure that you are focusing on having high quality product photos, good titles, and focusing on certain keywords that you want to rank and search for. So some things that you could sell with a art shop like this, you can sell prints, stickers. I've seen people sell bookmarks. You could sell washi tape. You can also do digital downloads. So you could do a brush pack. You can do digital downloads of certain patterns. If you decide to run an art shop like this, the last thing that I would say is to start very small. So I would not order a ton of art prints and stickers and things until you have tested it and are really sure that 1, that this is for you, and 2, that you have the demand for that kind of supply. If you're selling prints or something, if you're able to print them off at home and still get a pretty good quality, I would start with that instead of bulk buying a lot of art prints just to kind of test it out, because especially if you have a small following, because you might not need 100 prints of one painting, right? Until you kind of get used to it and kind of get a better idea of what sort of demand you have for certain products, I would hold off and try to start very, very small. Same thing with packaging and shipping supplies. Start very small. Use what you have if you already have some supplies. One of the cons of running an art shop like this is you have a lot of stuff. So if you have a very small apartment, a very small bedroom that you're trying to package and do these orders for, you may find that you don't have the room for all of this stuff. And that's where the second option, the second type of art shop comes in. That is a print on demand service. So this type of art shop is where you create a painting, you create an illustration, you upload it to a certain service, a certain platform. So InPrint, for example, you can upload it to their site. So then you would tell your followers and tell your friends and stuff, hey, these are where you can find my prints. Whenever somebody orders a print, they will actually handle everything else. So they do take a portion of your commission. Etsy also has seller fees and they also take a portion, but you are basically hands off. Like, you create the painting, the illustration, and then that's kind of it. Like, that's you, like, you're done. So the pro to this is if you do not have a lot of space in your apartment, your bedroom, wherever, this is a very good option if you just don't have the space for running a shop like this. The con to it, one is I know they take a pretty good chunk of that sale, so you are not getting as much of a profit as if you were selling on Etsy, for example. I do think it's a lot more difficult to get sales when you do a print-on-demand service if you have a small following. If you have a large following, I'm sure it's a lot easier because you're kind of having to direct traffic to your shop yourself. So like we talked about with Etsy, you get to kind of tap into their customer base. With InPrint or Redbubble, you're kind of having to create your own customer base. That's why it's a little bit more difficult to go this route. I think labor-wise and intensity-wise, it's a lot easier this way, but you have to do a lot more marketing yourself. Another problem with this kind of service is you really have no say with customizing orders. So one of the things I loved about running an Etsy shop and having a small business is customizing and personalizing orders. I loved to throw in free stickers and write a little thank you note and like just find ways to personalize it. And going through Redbubble or somewhere like that, you can't do that. Like they're not, that's not their thing, right? So you'd kind of take away the customer experience when you do it that way. But again, it kind of depends on what your goals are, what you are comfortable with. The upfront cost is a lot lower with going through Redbubble or InPrint, just because you're not having to buy shipping supplies, packaging supplies, product inventory, any of that stuff. Okay, next up, I want to talk about Patreon. I started my Patreon earlier this year, and so far I really, really like it. I do think there are some pros and cons to Patreon. Some of the pros I would say is it does give you a pretty consistent income month to month. If you want to become a full-time artist or a freelance artist, you have to kind of prepare for having very unsteady income. And even on YouTube, month to month, income is not the same. So it's really hard to kind of guesstimate how much you're going to earn each month. But I do feel like with Patreon, it is pretty consistent. Like, I've been on Patreon for several months now, and I've not really had any like dips. I've had it go up, but I've not really had it dip down. And that's very nice. Like, it's really nice to have pretty steady income on there. The downside to Patreon, I would say, is one, it takes a very long time to get a substantial amount of income from it. And this kind of depends on your tiers and what you offer. But for me personally, I currently just have one tier and it's $2. Over the past couple months, I've had more and more people join my Patreon, but it's still not enough income for me to live off of comfortably. It's going to take me time to kind of build it up, but that's something you need to consider too, is it's probably going to take you a little while to build it up to a spot where you're more comfortable with it. Because of that, one downside that I really dislike with Patreon, whenever you first get started, if you have a very small following, you kind of have to put forth a lot of effort and a lot of work for basically nothing. When I first started my Patreon, I think I had 2 people sign up the first month, and I put out a ton of content. I was putting out so much stuff on Patreon. So I feel like it's gotten to a point now where it is worth it for the $2 because you get a lot of content. But whenever I first started, I didn't have any content, so I had to kind of hurry and work to put out a ton of content. That was a lot of work on my end for basically no money. So that's kind of where you have to be careful with Patreon, is if you have a very small following, I honestly would recommend to wait. I would wait if I were you that way, because if you have a larger following, whenever you launch it, it's more likely that you'll have a lot more people sign up, and that way it's kind of more worth it, because if you're already making, let's say $100 a month from Patreon when you launch it, It's a lot more worth it to do all of that work that goes into creating all of that content at the beginning. I hope that makes sense. I hope you get what I'm saying. If you do decide to go the Patreon route, depending on what you want to offer, I would definitely create some content in advance. That's something that I really wish I had done more of, because I constantly feel like I'm behind. Just some ideas for some tier options that you could have. You could offer monthly art prints and stickers. You could offer like sketches and work in progress shots and sketchbook tours that maybe you don't post anywhere else. Do monthly tutorials. That's something that I've been doing here recently, the last couple months. I've seen people do podcast episodes on their Patreon. I think that's really fun. You can also do early access if you post a lot on Instagram. I've also seen people offer Discord access. I would find like 3 to 5 artists that you really, really like and are very successful on Patreon and see what they offer. See how many tiers they have. See how much they're charging for their tiers. And think about what kind of workload you think you could realistically do each month. If you feel like you get overwhelmed very easily, I would definitely recommend just starting with one tier. As it kind of continues to grow and more people sign up, it becomes more and more worth it to put all of that work and effort into making all the content for it. Okay, next up is content creation. So for me, this is YouTube AdSense, brand partnerships. I know a lot of people do like sponsored posts or sponsored content, that sort of stuff. The number one thing that I wish I had realized sooner is you really have to be willing to adapt. What I mean by that is I spent a really long time thinking that Instagram was like the only way to grow as an artist, become a full-time artist, all the things, right? Everything that I wanted to do and wanted to be, I was like, oh, I have to do it on Instagram because all the artists that I followed were doing it on Instagram. And when I finally made the switch over to YouTube, because at some point I just reached a breaking point with Instagram, and because I was literally posting content to Instagram and losing followers. And I was like, okay, I'm done. And that's when I started looking into YouTube and getting started on YouTube and doing all the things with YouTube. It was super scary, super scary for me personally. I'm an awkward person. I talked about this in my last video. You can check it out here if you want. But I didn't think that YouTube was for me. And learning to pivot and adapt and go on YouTube when all I had ever known was Instagram, it was the best thing for me and my art business and my art in general. It did take me a while. Like, it probably took me 2 years, kind of on and off, but 2 years of working on YouTube specifically before I got monetized. Once I got monetized though, it's kind of been very slowly increasing every month. And then I also have a brand partnership. So I am partnered with SKILLSHARE. I don't think I ever would have gotten that without YouTube. Like, I wouldn't have gotten that without YouTube. I would be stuck on Instagram, like, still not getting anywhere. My point with this being is, if you have been trying Instagram forever and you've just not been seeing any results and it's just, you've never had any good luck with it, try something else. It doesn't have to be YouTube. I'm biased. I'm gonna tell you that YouTube is the best, but it doesn't have to be YouTube. YouTube is not for everybody. It happened to work out better for me personally. It doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna work out for you. Like, there's no way to know that. And it all kind of depends on you being in the right place at the right time and all these things happening. But I truly feel like if you want to grow and earn money from content creation as an artist, I truly think you have to learn to adapt and try new things, even if they make you uncomfortable, even if they're kind of scary. If I hadn't tried on YouTube, I would never probably have made it earning income from my art online. I don't think I ever would have gotten Instagram figured out. Sometimes if things aren't working, it's okay to try something different, try something else. That was what never really clicked for me, is my wheels just kept spinning on Instagram. So that's my spiel. That's my thing about content creation. That is the advice that I wish I had heard, is truly, if you feel like it is not working for you, you do not have to stay on Instagram in order to make money as an artist. I know for me personally, I thought that was how it was, and that was not the case. And when I finally let go of that mindset, that was when like everything started like falling into place, I think. I'm going to talk about YouTube specifically here. I do have some videos. I do have a whole playlist of getting started on YouTube and tips for YouTube. If you want to check those out, I will leave them linked in the description. I just want to give some general tips here for getting monetized on YouTube. And also a kind of quick note on brand partnerships. I will be posting videos about growing your audience as an artist, so be sure to subscribe if you'd like to see that content. But if you are on YouTube and you are trying to get monetized, this kind of applies everywhere. But if you're trying to get your 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers, the best advice that I can give you is, one, to be consistent. This does not mean posting every day. You do not have to post every day. I do think posting once a week is ideal, but I also know that that is difficult. Like, that is not easy for some people. At one point I was working full time. I was working night shift at a pediatric ICU, so pretty high stress job. I was also going to school and getting my bachelor's in business marketing. I was pregnant with my second child, and I was running my Etsy shop. So there was a ton of stuff going on all at the same time. So believe me when I tell you, I know that it's not always, like, it's easier said than done to say, oh, just post once a week. Like, I totally get it. To me personally, if you can post at least twice a month, that is like great. But if you can put aside the time to post once a week and be consistent, that is going to help you so much in the long run for growing your channel and getting monetized. Second thing, not only do you need to be consistent, you really need to figure out what sort of value do you bring to your audience. When I first started posting on YouTube, I was posting like speed paints and just like time-lapse videos from Procreate. I wasn't really thinking about what sort of value can I provide to people. I was just kind of like, oh, I need to post something, I'll just post this. But whenever I really started looking into things and being like, okay, I should provide some sort of value to people, I started doing like educational type of content, and that's really when my channel started to kind of take off. The more that I started posting education content and just teaching people how to do things that I knew, my channel started to do really well then. If you are in that phase where you have already gotten monetized on YouTube, but you're trying to figure out brand partnerships and brand deals and things, one, I'm not perfect either. Like, I'm right there with you, buddy. But I did get my partnership with SKILLSHARE. One thing I kind of just want to mention is I actually reached out to SKILLSHARE in, I think, January of this year. And I was like, hey, I'd love to do I'd love to, do sponsored content with you, whatever. And I didn't even hear back. Like, nobody emailed me back or anything. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep my head down, keep working on my numbers, because I'm sure my numbers just aren't good enough. So I kept working on my channel. And then probably like around 6 months later, I sent them another email and I was like, hey, I'm just, reaching out. I'd love to do sponsored content with you, whatever. And this time they replied back to me and they were like, hey, we don't want to do sponsored content, but you can join us with our partnership and we can kind of see how it goes, maybe sponsor you in the future. And I think at the time I maybe had 5,000 subscribers. So I did not have a huge following. I'm currently at 10,000 subscribers. I still don't see myself as like a big YouTuber. Like, I think that's still a very small channel. And so, but I say that to you because if you feel like you just don't have the numbers, or like brands will just like reject you or whatever, you truly just have to keep working at it and keep reaching out to brands and keep, every 6 months or so, like, send them another email. If your numbers have improved and your channel has improved, like, send them an email and let them know and just see what happens. Like, you never know until they tell you. If you are nervous or scared or, uncomfortable with doing something, like, sometimes you never know. And if you just try and just ask, as long as you are just being polite and respectful and stuff, like, brands are not just gonna like say no and then just never work with you again, I think that's another big lesson that I had to learn, and I think would be helpful to somebody out there, is just keep trying and just send the email and ask the brand to work with you. And if they say no, they say no. Then if your numbers improve in 6 months, ask again. The last one that I want to mention here is commissions. Commissions are a really great way to increase your income. The one thing I will say about commissions is I do feel like you kind of have to get your art skill to a certain level, I think, to really start on commissions. I actually explain that in a whole video, and I talk about how to get started with commissions and all of pretty much everything I know about commissions I put into that video. So actually, if you want to check that video out, you can do so here. And other than that, that is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!